Hello, and welcome to the very first episode of the Voces United podcast. My name is James, and this podcast is about learning English, building real skills, and discovering how language and education can change lives. Today, I want to share my story, why I started Voces United, and how my love for history, languages, technology, and teaching all came together into one mission. By the end of the episode, I hope you'll not only understand what Voces United is, but why it exists, and how I believe it can impact millions of lives around the world. Ever since I was a kid, I've been fascinated by culture, language, and history. One of my earliest memories was in elementary school when we had a Jewish student and her father come in and talk about their culture and specifically Hanukkah. I remember learning to play dreidel and them just speaking a little bit of Hebrew. It was really cool. They shared a story, like their traditions, and I remember just being completely captivated by it. It's like a whole new world opened up in front of me. I didn't know anything except for celebrating Christmas, and oh, there's other cultures out there. It was completely something new for me. And at the same time, I was just generally obsessed with history, and I had a deep curiosity about South America specifically. My teacher did projects for helping saving the rainforest every year. We did different walks and projects in the class every year to build awareness about the deforestation of the rainforest in South America. So I always wanted to visit Brazil and see what it was like down there. And always dreamed of going there. Still haven't, but that spark for learning about other people and other places just never really left me. So I moved from Scarborough in Maine to Portland when I went to middle school, and that in and of itself was a whole culture change for me. But I remember we had to choose a language, either French or Spanish. I remember I wanted to do Spanish. It was kind of the cool thing, the popular language. So I said, I want to do Spanish. But the class was full, so I got stuck with going to French instead. I thought it was a little bit of a setback. Like I wanted to learn Spanish, and I thought it was something that would be cool to learn. And I wanted to go to South America someday and maybe use that language. But anyway, I ended up going into French, but it was really a blessing in disguise because my teacher, her name was Miss Green. She's since been married. I don't remember what her name is now, but it doesn't matter. She was extremely engaging, and I just loved the way that she taught. So I got super immersed in learning French. I took French every single year through middle school, of course, and then it really just inspired me. It wasn't necessary, but to continue learning a language in high school. So I said, you know what, I'll continue with French, which I did. And we had a teacher from France, Madame Cadeau, and she was, it was a lot different. She was a lot stricter and everything, but it was a challenge I wanted to learn. She was super nice. Our whole French class was very tight too. We got along very well, and pretty much all of us went up through French seminar, which was the highest level in high school. So I, continued through French. And then I think it was my second semester of sophomore year, so like the spring semester, I had a teacher who taught both French and Spanish. And I remember taking one of the textbooks off the wall, and one of the Spanish textbooks off the wall, and I just started flipping through it and realized I actually can understand most of what this says in here. I don't know Spanish at all, but I could actually understand based on the structure of the language and how both French and Spanish are Romance languages, from with Latin roots, that the structure of the language was the same, and many of the words were actually the same, or very similar, I suppose. Um, so I asked to borrow the textbook during the summertime so that I could take. I didn't want to take Spanish 1. I wanted to jump into Spanish 2 when in the fall. And she said, "Yeah, of course." And I also said, "All right. And do you have like all the workbooks and homework from Spanish 1 so I can just study that?" And she gave me everything that she had, and I went and photocopied a bunch of stuff and got ready to learn. And also, my girlfriend at the time had been taking Spanish since middle school, and I used all of her class notes. She'd already been in, I think, Spanish 3 at the time, so I had pretty good amount of content. She helped me kind of helped teach me a little bit. Mostly self-directed, but got some help there. So I got to Spanish 2 in the fall semester. I went in, and the very first day I realized this is way too easy for me. This is going to be boring. I need to jump to the next level. So talked to the teacher and said, can I go to Spanish 3 instead? She said, "Are you sure?" It's like, yeah. She's like, "Well, I think she gave me the final exam of Spanish 2 and I passed it." She's like, "Okay, go ahead. Go to Spanish 3." And the Spanish teacher for Spanish 3 was Marcos Miller, amazing guy. When I went into the class, I asked him if he would mentor me a little bit more because I actually wanted to get to the highest level of Spanish before I left high school, which meant that I needed to skip Spanish 4. So I said, "Give me as much homework as you possibly can for 3 and 4 so I can skip through 4 and jump into 5," which I did. So when I went to Spanish 5, it was led by the head of the language department, Carlos Gomez, and he didn't know who I was. And normally he taught all the students that were there at some point. And I got to his class, and I remember he asked everyone to write down on an index card all the classes that they had taken, all the Spanish classes that they had taken, and I wrote down one class, which was Spanish 3. And he looked at me and he asked me in Spanish if I was sure that I wanted to take this class, that it was going to be muy difícil, really hard. And I was like, yeah, I can, I can do it. And he was, talking to me in Spanish, and I understood what he was saying. So anyway, I ended up taking it. He said it was going to be really challenging, and I'm not going to downplay it. It was tough and everything, but I got through it, aced it, and went through to Spanish Seminar 1, and then there was also Spanish Seminar 2. So I took that also to the highest level. So also through high school, as I said, I was dating a girl, and her family was Jewish, and they welcomed me in completely to their home, actually their synagogue, their traditions, and I really felt embraced by their community. This was another culture that I had been fascinated with in elementary school, and I didn't get much exposure, to Judaism since then. So, I really just kind of took it on and wanted to learn as much as I could about, my girlfriend and her family. And they even, took me in when I left my home. I left when I was a little bit younger than 18. And I ended up living with them for a couple of years, and they, they were my family essentially. And I remember on Friday night, they call it Shabbat. They had a prayer that they would say, and it was all in Hebrew. And then, of course, when I went to the synagogue, during services, everything was in Hebrew. I was like, this is interesting. Like, this is a community that's speaking another language. It wasn't conversational Hebrew. It was just prayers, but it was still really fascinating to me to just hear another language being spoken by a big group of people. So my girlfriend had given me a pen that had the Hebrew alphabet on it. And I remember one day just sitting in a car in a passenger seat. Someone went into a store for a little bit, and I just was sitting there bored. So I took out the pen and read through the letters that were on there. When you turned it, you could see all the different letters. And by the time the person got back in the car, I had learned all the letters. I didn't necessarily know how they were pronounced, but I knew what the names of them were. And they coincide pretty closely to English, honestly. But anyway, I then asked my girlfriend's father if I could take a couple of the simple Hebrew books that he had, just, basic words and letters still. And I read through those and just learned some really basic words. And I also bought a workbook, a textbook that had some stickers in it. And I went through and labeled everything in my room with the different stickers. And before long, I was actually starting to read Hebrew. And then, so I think this was my junior year of high school. And I was like, this was maybe the fall semester of that year. And my girlfriend and I I was interested in having, learning the conversational Hebrew, and I was wondering if her synagogue offered anything like that, and unfortunately they did not. But because of the inquiry, we ended up finding a teacher that was interested in teaching Hebrew after school a couple days a week at the synagogue. Her name was Ruth, another amazing teacher, right? The theme here being that having someone that is passionate about teaching and dedicated to somebody's learning and development is key to success. The teachers become an important part of the journey, and those experiences really showed me something important. Language isn't just about words. It's culture, it's belonging, and it's being welcomed into a community. Then we fast forward to when I went to college. So I left Maine and went down to Boston to go to school. And I went into computer science, and, I ended up changing my degree multiple times to the point where I didn't end up finishing school because my scholarship got pulled. But anyway, in school, I continued studying languages. I went into Hebrew and then back to my roots of French. Had a roommate that liked learning French too, so we went into that together. To kind of drop the Spanish there and focused on those other two languages for a while. And then after leaving school, I ended up working in the restaurant industry. So I started at Dunkin' Donuts in downtown Boston. And my very first manager was named Eddie. Now, this is another person who I would consider a major mentor of mine, a major teacher of mine, which really, if you're a good teacher or mentor, they are one and the same. Teacher, mentor, leader, they're all synonymous if you have a good one. But Eddie's family is from Haiti, so he's Haitian, American Haitian, and he's comes from the streets of Boston. Grew up there, completely different culture than mine, but he was a brother to me, and he saw potential in me, mentored me, and even invited me into his home to live when I didn't have anywhere else to stay. One day I asked him, how can I ever repay you? And he told me, just do the same for someone else someday. That has stuck with me. It has become part of who I am as a person, as a leader, and I've made it my mission to help as many people as I possibly can. Working in food service, I met many coworkers from Spanish speaking countries. I also already knew how to read and write Spanish pretty well. I had a girlfriend at the time who was Dominican, and was motivated to learn more Spanish. I realized that with all of the schooling that I had and all the languages that I learned, I could read and write all those languages very well, but speaking and listening were much harder. The only way I could learn how to speak and listen was to be immersed in it. So, besides just working, I found a tutor. Her name is Sybil Centers. She was an absolute blessing. Through her, I learned that real language learning isn't about memorizing grammar rules, it's about practice, attention, and confidence. It doesn't matter if you sound dumb or you don't say the words the right way or grammar the right way. A native speaker is going to understand what you say, and they might correct you. It might be embarrassing. You might look stupid in your head, but it's in your head. And if you are willing to make a fool of yourself a little bit, right, then you're going to be able to learn the language. And the fool's only yourself. No one else really cares. But anyway, that realization planted the seed for Voces United. The idea that learners need practical, consistent, and personalized tools and not just a classroom and a textbook. Fast forward to today, and I'm now married to my amazing wife, who is a Spanish speaker from Colombia. Learning Spanish has opened so many doors for me, both personally and professionally. It's allowed me to connect with my family and to travel to Colombia multiple times and to grow in ways that I never imagined. I know firsthand what it's like to wrestle with a new language, and I also know the reward. The relationships that you gain, the doors that open, the confidence that you build. It's a whole new world when you learn a language. So, although I was really confused during college and didn't really know where to put myself because I just had way too many interests and I didn't really know where they pointed to, when I look back, all of my passions really line up. I love history. I love languages. I love technology. And I love teaching. And while it felt like random interests and also felt like a failure of mine when I didn't complete school, I'm starting to realize that they actually all connect now and lead to something that's actually beneficial and tangible and maybe my calling. Voces United is the result. It's my way of uniting voices from different cultures, of giving immigrants the tools and confidence to succeed. Right now, I'm starting it digitally, so using my technology background to create videos, courses, books, and a community. It's a learning curve for me. I'm still learning to speak into a microphone. I'm still learning to edit videos or to create content that's useful. It's a little bit all over the place, but I'm just trying to learn and develop myself. I'm learning alongside each and every one of you. But my vision is actually much bigger than just creating digital content. I would love to have physical schools around the world someday, probably starting in Colombia, where we can learn languages together. So schools that not only teach English, but also technology, culture, life skills. But it's all starting here. And in my current situation, I want to be able to help people that are here in the United States that to feel like they can't get ahead because they don't speak English. I've encountered in the restaurant industry, I've mentored and developed so many leaders, and there are so many of them that feel like they can't go any further in their career or in their life here in America because of their English. Really, I've seen that it's a confidence issue more than an actual knowledge or skill issue. So I want to be somebody that is not only teaching the English language, but can create confidence inside of the community and inside of people. Anyway, thank you very much for listening to this first episode. This is just the beginning. In the episodes ahead, I plan on kind of structuring it where I have episodes where I'm teaching my wife English, episodes where I am having interviews with immigrants or with subject matter experts about learning in languages, and then also having a podcast with my wife where we are just talking to each other and having stories about our life that might be in English and Spanish, and just, you know, sharing learning strategies, immigrant stories, and lessons from my own journey of growth. Together, we'll learn languages, explore cultures, and build skills that change lives. If you found this meaningful, please subscribe, share this episode with someone who could benefit, and check out Voces United online for free resources. This is more than just a podcast. It's a movement. And together, we're uniting voices, building confidence, and creating opportunity. I'm James, and this is Voces United.